Ops 6 is finally here, and if you're wanting some super high FPS numbers so you can take full advantage of the new Omni movement, then you're in luck, because they were building the ultimate budget gaming PC for Black Ops 6. We only spent $500 on these parts, and it's gonna look absolutely awesome and smash those FPS numbers at 1080p. We can even stretch it into 1440p if that's what you really want to do. So you're not gonna want to miss how awesome this PC is gonna look and how good it performs. So let's talk about it. Now, to kick off this budget build, we had to go look at the minimum and recommended specs for Black Ops 6. These specs do only account for 60 FPS, which we want more of because we're gamers and that's just what we do. It was important for us just to look at them and see a good starting place. The recommended CPU though is definitely showing age. From the AMD version, they're talking about a 1600X, and for Intel, a 6700K, which really shocked me. I thought it would be much higher than that. And in fact, you don't have to spend much more than that to get a ton more performance out of your CPU, which you'll see later in the video. The graphics cards they recommended for the recommended settings were pretty beefy. We're talking about an RX 6600 XT from the AMD side, and from NVIDIA side, the GTX 1080 Ti or a 3060. So a little bit pricey for the recommended settings, but I've got something up my sleeve that's gonna be just a little bit better when it comes to price to performance. So make sure you stick around so you can see that. So let's show you what we did. Starting with the motherboard, we went with this B550 from MSI, mainly because I got it for free. But let's make sure one thing's very clear. I'm not counting free in the $500. I don't like when YouTubers do that. It really bothers me, so I'm not gonna do it. So I budgeted for around $80 for the motherboard, $75 to $80. You can find those used B550s on eBay pretty much any day of the week. You can also go to places like AliExpress if you're okay with buying a motherboard that's not common here in the United States. I just scored this B550 today on eBay for only $60, tax, shipping, and all. It didn't come with an IO shield, but that's a really good deal to have Gen 4 support on the AM4 platform, which gives you great upgradability in the future. Because again, the graphics card we picked does better with Gen 4. I'm a little bit controversial when it comes to RAM because I think RAM is actually a really good deal to buy used. You can pick them up for $20 to $25 all the time on eBay. Just make sure you get 16 gigs and 3200 megahertz. In this build, we're using this set from Pinnacle that I picked up off Amazon when it was on sale for only like 30 bucks, but however you want to buy RAM is totally up to you. For the SSD, just get any 1TB SSD that is at least Gen 4. I would check to see that they have decent read and write speeds. Right now, SSDs are not as cheap as they were about a year ago, but they're definitely a little cheaper than they were a few months ago. You can get a really nice 1TB SSD like this one I got from Team Group for only $57, and they have really good read and write speeds for this price. Which leads us to one of the two parts that you are most concerned about, which is the CPU. For the CPU, we went with the new budget king in my opinion, which is the Ryzen 5 5600. Now, if you want to go to Amazon and buy this, you're going to pay around $115. It will come with a stock cooler, but I just don't think that's worth the money because you can buy from AliExpress. Now, I know some of you are nervous about that, and I was nervous about it for a really long time, but AliExpress is just basically like Amazon for the rest of the world. As long as you check the seller ratings and they have really good ratings, you have nothing to worry about. I've never gotten a bad CPU from AliExpress. You can pick up the 5600s on the regular for $75 to $80, which gives you some great value. And if you're lucky, you might even find a coupon code and save about 10 bucks. The only negative from buying from AliExpress is it does not come with a cooler. You have a couple of options. You can buy a stock cooler from Amazon for like 10 bucks, and then you could spray paint the outer ring to match the theme of your build. Or one of my favorite things to do is to get the ID Cooling 214 XT. It's normally only $17, $18 on Amazon, and it comes with a daisy chainable RGB fan. So I think that's pretty good price. And there's also a Thermalright version of it if you would rather do that. Some people say it gives you better performance, but I think they're about the same. Now in this build, we actually had this ID Cooling Blitz cooler because I thought it looked really cool. It had some extra RGB on it, but it turns out that you can't actually change the RGB color. So we scrapped that and I went and got a cooler off another PC that was laying around so that I could have an RGB fan. So you just buy the ID Cooling one if you need a CPU cooler that's cheap. But once you got the motherboard put together, you're ready to put it in the case. And now the case for this build, we went with the orange and black theme because it's October, we're close to Halloween, and Black Ops 6 has been marketing this black and orange version with their logo, and they're actually teamed up with a bunch of different companies, and some of this gear that they've been coming out with looks really cool. But I also love the color orange if you couldn't tell. And we picked up this case from Vitro. It was on Amazon. It was like around $60. The only bad thing was it only come with one fan. So we had to also buy a pack of these Thermalright fans, which was another $13. So all in all, we were close to like $75, $80 for our case, but I wanted the black and orange theme for a Halloween/Black Ops 6 build. Now, if I were you and you don't like the color orange, you can definitely save money by going with something like the Akinos Aqua 3. It's only 60 bucks and it comes with 3 fans already pre-installed. So that's definitely the better deal to save 20 bucks. If you get the black build like we're doing with the cable extensions that are also orange, you're gonna go a little over the $500 budget. Now, the power supply is my favorite budget power supply right now. It's the Sigotep Gold Certified 650 watt power supply. It's used by the Toasty Bros in builds they sell in their PC selling business. And Sigotep is a really good brand. They're underrated. They have some power supplies that are rated really high on the tier list. I don't know where this specific one is rated, but if you're into that kind of thing, you can go look it up. I've had 0 issues from them. The only drawback is it is not a modular power supply, so you have a lot of extra cords you have to deal with when it comes to cable management. But if you're on a budget, beggars can't be choosers, right? But now it's time for the star of the show. As we already talked about in the recommended settings, we're talking about an RX 6600 XT, a GTX 1080 Ti, or a 3060. Those are some pretty beefy cards for recommended settings at only 60 FPS. And 2 of those cards are over $200. So what we decided to do is go with the budget king for 2024, and that's the RX 5700 XT. I absolutely love this card still. It's only got 8 gigs of VRAM, and I know some people, will get super upset about that, but it's still a really good card for the price. On eBay right now, I've been able to see them around 120 to 130, and I snagged this one around that price a few months ago on eBay, and when I checked again today, there were still a couple around that price. If you're patient, you can find the deal. And honestly, if I was gonna spend any more money for a graphics card for this type of build, I would either go with the RX 6700 XT used because they're around $220 right now, or just go with a brand new card and get the 7700 XT, and then you'll have a 1440p beast for gaming. But we're only spending $500, so we can't spend that kind of money here. But overall, I think the orange and black theme looks absolutely awesome. So you let me know what you think about it down in the comments, because I stayed up till midnight so that I could have this video ready for you guys, because I'm not using a VPN to play early because it's just not something that I like to do. I'm not gonna knock anybody that does it. It's not me. So we played this game at 2 different settings at 1440p and 1080p. We tried 1440p first, and we started out with ultra settings, no upscaling. We did all the no upscalings first just to see what it's like. Now, it didn't appear that there was a frame generation feature on this Black Ops 6. That may be something they have not yet put in the game and they're gonna add later. I'm not sure, but we just had no upscaling turned on at all to start with. Ultra settings, we got around like 60-ish FPS. At times it was close to 70, which I thought was pretty good for an 8GB card. That's getting pretty old at this point. But it did have a few drops down into the low 50s. So we dropped the settings down to like the balance preset, and that gave us a little bit better FPS experience. We got a more solid like 75 to 80 FPS, which was much more playable and easier to, get some elimination. We dropped it one more time to the basic settings because that's about as low as you can go without it changing the render scale, which we did not want to do. And we got close to 100 FPS. It was probably more stable, like 95 FPS, maybe some in the 90s, but it did hit 100 every now and then. Just to see how much FPS we could get, we did enable FSR 3.0. The only problem with FSR 3.0 right now on Black Ops 6 that I found in the hours that I played is that by default it's on native settings, so you are gonna have to turn it to like performance or ultra performance to see any difference in your FPS. On ultra performance, it did get us close to that 120 mark that, is pretty solid, and a lot of monitors play at that rate, and that gets us close to the new gen console experience because they use upscaling, so better not see any, just get a PS5 in the comment. It's okay. But then we went for 1080p because that's where I think this gaming PC is really gonna shine, and at 1080p, ultra settings, we got around like a 70-ish FPS mark, 75 at times, depending on what the map was. Then again, we dropped it down to balanced, and we got really close to that 100 FPS mark, and on basic settings, we got around like 120 FPS. Now, the maps did vary a lot in my experience with the FPS numbers, so don't freak out if you, do a map and you're like 10 to 15 FPS less. It was kind of all over the place, so you might wanna make make sure that you cap it somewhere so you're not bumping it up and down, and that might boost your 1% lows a little bit, although I could not get MSI Afterburner to track the 1% lows in Black Ops 6 today, but I think it'll be okay. And the last test that we ran at 1080p was with FSR 3.0. We put it on the ultra performance settings and we crushed it, getting over 150 FPS. Sometimes it was even around 170 at times. And overall, I think this game just ran super duper smooth on this budget gaming PC. I play on a 4090 on my regular PC. This was still really, really smooth. If you were to build this for yourself, you would be super happy with it. But overall, let me know what you think about this awesome gaming PC down in the comments and what you think we should have done differently. But if you are wanting to build something like this and you don't know how to build a gaming PC, then you can go watch a step-by-step guide where I do that for you. It won't be the exact same parts, but the steps are pretty much the same right here.